sanctuary, and probably that of other gods and goddesses as well. These were big collective cemeteries with thousands of cat mummies.
Wad is not content to simply maintain the temple and protect and dress his goddess. He also prepares all sorts of rituals intended to prevent the world from descending into chaos. The practices associated with the cat endured under different forms during almost 2 millennia, from the Middle Kingdom of the Ptolemaic period, during which Egypt became a Greek colony. The Greeks, who were surprised by the worship bestowed upon an animal that didn't exist in their country, kept a written record of all of the customs that were dedicated to it. The cat is sacred in the new empire. 1,000 years before our era, killing a cat is punishable by death for all common mortals, though priests are an exception. All of these cats will be offered in sacrifice before being mummified and bestowed upon Bastet. In only 1 millennium, the cat has gone from being a wild animal and unwitting hunting partner to an animal used by man. At the same time, while keeping his legendary independent instinct, he has accessed the heart of family life. In this sumptuous villa, like in the rest of Egyptian society, the cat embodies both gentleness and protection of the home. Maya, the mother of 6 kittens, is one of the family's most prized possessions. Nothing can trouble the serenity of the premises as long as Maya is present. Maya still resembles her wild cat ancestors a lot. She has retained some of their instincts, a taste for independence and a curiosity that the dog, whose social instinct was much more developed, lost much faster. She has retained some morphological resemblances to her ancestor, the wild cat, but her behavior has already undergone significant modification. Though she's still timid with man, she is perhaps a bit more wary of the numerous other cats that are still somewhat wild or barely domesticated, that wander in the alleyways or in the village surroundings. There are many of them, and they do not like the intruders that dare enter their domain. Like her, they have inherited a strong territorial disposition from their wild ancestors. Though 2 cats can experience difficulty sharing the same territory, the cat no longer hesitates to share his with humans. His behavior has evolved under their influence. As adults, domestic cats retain juvenile behavior that facilitated their connection to man. As kittens grow, they remain docile, contrary to their wild ancestors. However, this won't keep them from becoming worthy predators. In the gardens and patios of wealthy homes, cats have built a reputation as great exterminators of asps of Cleopatra and other venomous reptiles that the area is swarming with. These inexperienced kittens are defenseless, however, when faced with the snake. Maya has, nevertheless, lost a bit of the vivacity and experience that characterized the effectiveness of her wild ancestors. She doesn't have the time to plan her attack. This time, the snake is swift, and his bite proves deadly. The attachment of Egyptians to their cats is immense. Losing Maya is a terrible tragedy for the entire family. As a sign of mourning, all of the family members submit themselves to a strange ritual. They will all shave their eyebrows. Not only are animals transformed by their entry into human society, but the lives of men are profoundly altered as well. Maya's remains will be entrusted to the priests for embalming. Her mummy will then be left at the temple of the goddess Bastet.
When we speak of sacred animals and a cult of the cat, of Bastet in male or female cat form, we must also imagine all of the practical aspects, all of the financial aspects, shall we say, the economic aspects this involves. Because even if it is considered to be religious, it is also economic, financial, and therefore very practical. There were priests or people here who worked in the Bubasteion. People would come here to leave a cat or buy a mummy or consecrate a mummy. These small statuettes were offered, and often they were gilded, and also painted in gilt. Very big cat coffins were offered. The shape is simplified. The cat's head is in a square shape. It's quite funny.
The cult of Bastet never ceases to gain popularity. 13 centuries after its construction, the Bubastion has become a genuine place of pilgrimage and of the selling of offerings, similar to the Christian city of Lourdes in our day. This trade is a godsend for the clergy that become rich by making mummies. For the faithful, their request to the gods will be passed on by the embalmed feline in the hereafter, and will assure them success in love, fertility, or recovery from disease. In order to satisfy the crowd of pilgrims that gathers in front of the temple to buy the mummies, the priests embalm the cats in industrial-like fashion. Maya's master is rich. The remains of his cat have benefited from special treatment and a finely decorated sarcophagus. Cat embalming does not follow the same protocol as that of humans. Wad does not always remove the organs of the carcass, the stage of mummification that avoids decomposition. Sometimes he even cuts the cat up to split the remains in several mummies. Faced with an increasing demand, how could he cope otherwise? Where could he possibly find so many cats dedicated for sacrificing? The hot and dry air in Egypt favoured the preservation of these bodies, bandaged in fine strips of linen, coated in cedar oil and spices. Henceforth, the thousands of mummies that rested for eternity in the Bubastion are stored in one of the tombs of the necropolis, referred to by archaeologists as the Cat Mummy Library. Cécile Calou, archaeozoologist with the National Museum of Natural History in Paris, was able to study this rich archaeological material.
With this large amount of cats, the assessment that I carried out over an area of 2 square meters by extrapolating the whole of the basement of the tomb gives a figure of 7,000 cats in the basement alone.
The estimate is staggering. Between the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, thousands of cats were sacrificed. But how could they obtain so many cats? And where did they come from?
This is a very limited sample of the cranial diversity that can be found in the Bubasteion. There is a large diversity that proves that there are really 2 groups. One is a group of wild animals, Felis sylvestris, and another domesticated group. Animals were forced together, put into pens, kept and crossbred, and little by little a genetic impoverishment occurred that laid the foundation for characteristics of domestication.
The study of the remains reveals that cats were primarily domestic. The priests probably developed massive breeding pens for cats in order to carry out all of the offerings. In Egypt, the cat was therefore not only domestic because he lived among men, but could also be bred at a scale virtually unknown until now. But the random nature of archaeological discoveries can cause us to dramatically reassess the best laid knowledge. About 10 kilometers off the coast of Turkey and Syria, on the island of Cyprus, a team of French archaeologists made a startling discovery that will shatter our ideas about the history of the domestic cat and its origins. This spectacular discovery pushes the initial recorded contact between man and cat back more than 5,000 years. For Jean-Denis Vin, this is the most ancient proof of the connection between men and cats.
The fact that this cat skeleton was found next to a human grave is of very profound importance and shows the association between cat and man in the hereafter. At that time, there was an obvious close link that could be at the root of cat domestication.
But how is it that under man's influence, Felis sylvestris, the wild cat, became Felis catus, the domestic cat? With the introduction of agriculture and the creation of stocks of grain, a new blight is revealed: rodents. The abundance of mice has, without a doubt, attracted the small feline. They would have thus chosen, to a certain extent, to become closer to humans, who quickly realized the help cats could offer in their struggle against the rodents. The most ancient proof is Cypriot, but evidence of the first links between an entire society and the cat remain Egyptian. The cat tamed in the Near East 7,000 years before our era may not even be the ancestor of the cats of Pharaoh's empire. It wouldn't be surprising if, in their own way, Egyptians reinvented cat domestication, independently from the Neolithics of the Near East. In Egypt, the history of domestication hastens. Man has made cats one of his first animal companions and is starting to select more and more specialized dogs.
The very rich iconography of ancient Egypt provides us with the initial evidence of the presence of genuine types of dogs, quite distinguishable from each other and reproducible from generation to generation. Among these types, we can discern at least 3 characteristics. A very robust, huge dog. A smaller dog, probably used for pleasure, like a basset hound. And finally, a pedigree dog used for hunting, like a greyhound.
The saga of domestication hastens. In Egypt, as in more or less the rest of the Mediterranean, man quickly conceives new functions for the animals that surround them. Since it is impossible to run after small game, the highest performing dogs are used. The dogs that come back empty-handed won't be treated to any reward. Only the most able and fastest individuals, those that bring back the highest amount of game, will be selected for reproduction. Their offspring will inherit their prowess. Only a few generations are needed to give rise to dogs that are more and more efficient and more specialized. Henceforth, the domestication process is hastened due to the pressure of selection imposed by breeders. A little over 3,000 years before our era, animals will start to be used as tools. Animals will now help man. The utilisation of the might of bovines will transform the lives of peasants in Egypt as well as in Europe and in numerous regions of Asia. The simple wooden plough towed by cows or ox will provide in a few short minutes what it takes several hours for a man to do. At the same time, the invention of the wheel will foster the transportation of staples. An animal as a tool of work is born, and each day we find new uses for it. Our ancestors observed the specific qualities of certain species. They secure their talents to improve their quality of life. When the first cities arise and handwriting appears in the 3rd millennium BC, the domestication of draft or saddle animals will profoundly modify the habits of men that have adopted them. Thanks to these tough animals of conveyance, man will be able to develop long-distance trade and spread throughout the world the domestication techniques of these species. The domestication of the dromedary, like that of the horse, promotes commercial and cultural exchanges. Between the 10th and 12th centuries AD, trade starts to flourish. Big caravans travel from the Middle East to Andalusia in Spain. Similarly to this new nomadism, the settlement of our distant ancestors is the result of the influence of man over animal. All over the world, numerous hubs of domestication have developed. In South America, llamas and alpacas supply wool and travel the Andes Cordillera loaded with bundles. In the Near and Middle East, the Bedouin tame the hawk to hunt small game. From Egypt, the cat probably followed the path of Buddhism between India and China. It protects the sacred manuscripts from mice in Burmese temples. From China, the pug joins the court of Marie Antoinette. Later, Fortune Josephine de Beauharnais' dog becomes the most famous pug in history. The domestication process takes an incredible leap forward during the second half of the 19th century. The Age of Enlightenment, followed by industrialization and research on profitability, gives rise to scientific breeding. The new breeders use more and more rational methods for the selection of animals that are the most capable, or the ones that will conform the most to their demands. Groups of breeders form to select animals with physical and behavioral attributes that move further away from those of their wild ancestors. A diversification in the types of domestic animals occurs that is without precedent. Some of these enlightened breeders travel the world researching new domesticated forms. They hope to increase the diversity of forms of production on their farms, which have become genuine zootechnic experimental laboratories. At that time, the notion of breeds that include an idea of geographical land takes shape. Through better controlled crossbreeding, groups of breeders form regional breeds whose best representatives are presented during agricultural shows. The morphological and behavioural characteristics of each breed, as well as the quality of production and the services they render, are codified and recorded in herd books. Thus, bantams, also called silky chickens, originating from Asia, are selected for their originality and their gift of brooding. They can brood up to 10 eggs.
So, Augustin, how's our cow doing?
Oh, much better, Mr. Courbet. She was very well treated. Right, old girl?
Henceforth, alongside the everything cow, specialised cows exist for their meat, and others for their potential to provide milk. In the same way, certain sheep, like the Spanish Merinos, provide big quantities of wool. Others will be selected for their rapid growth and the quality of their meat. An entire series of animals we domesticated retained only a distant resemblance to their wild ancestors. These goats are completely different from the big wild goats that lived in the mountainous regions of Anatolia or during the Neolithic period. Selective mating, practiced from generation to generation, has allowed size, coat, disposition and productivity to be moulded. This has resulted in the breeds that we know today. To the detriment of the laws of nature, sometimes abnormalities, special features or odd shapes that emerged through mutation were attained and then instituted. We selected and crossbred pink pigs with each other and created new breeds. Everything seems possible now. A passionate interest is taken in experimentation. Spotted pigs resulting from the crossbreeding of a Normandy and a black pig imported from Great Britain give rise to a new breed, the spotted pig of Bayeux. A breed valued for its hardy character and its prolific sow is born. The 19th century will be known as the century of breed manufacturing. We will exploit knowledge of Darwinian evolution to open a Pandora's box and mould new types of animals. Our farm animals will henceforth comply with well-established standards. They correspond perfectly to the ideal image that we have envisioned for each animal. These rabbits, the Burgundy Fauve, owe their exceptional colour and hardiness to a multiplication of crossbreedings throughout the 19th century. The breed selection engenders numerous morphological and behavioural modifications. The cyclical character of the rutting season disappears with the new domestic animals. Consequently, they're sexually active earlier. Man has profited from this asset by profoundly modifying their fertility and their productivity. By selecting the best breeders and crossbreeding them with each other, we have produced animals much more adapted to our needs than their wild ancestors. While the boar's normal litter consists of 4 to 6 young, man has been able to increase this capacity to 12 young with the pig. While a wild hen can lay about 60 eggs per year, her domestic cousin rapidly began laying over 100 per year. Today, hybrid hens can lay over 300 eggs per year. Very rapidly, the creation of new breeds will not only include prolific animals. A frantic multiplication of animal breeds used for pleasure or companionship will arise. With the Industrial Revolution comes another revolution. British aristocracy wants to distance itself from the new middle class and possess animals of pure blood. They introduced the concept of pedigree.
Junior's Juno's the best of the bulldogs and knows it too.
The new middle class, concerned about keeping up appearances and of the exterior signs of wealth, goes in search of a singular animal.
These are Pekingese. The one in my left hand is the best of winners in the show.
This is the wild fox terrier, champion Eden aristocrat, considered the best dog we've ever had in England.
This is Dromo Wee June. Ears must be trimmed, nails must be manicured.
But we are proud that she's going to sing a few weeks over the radio. Lola, going to sing now? Going to sing for Mother?
Brave, courageous.
Going to sing for Mother, yes.
In fact, the insurance companies reduce your premium if you have a dog in the house, and more if you have a bull terrier.
Henceforth, breeders of companion animals attach more importance to the exterior appearance of an animal than his character or aptitude for work. Cat and dog shows promote the establishment and multiplication of breed standards. Animals are no longer selected for their profit potential, like farm animals are, but rather for their ornamental significance. Sometimes our whims push us to accomplish amazing feats. In Brussels, Joe and Aude Jagenou are raising potential champion rare Sphinx cats. We thought that by creating the hairless Sphinx, we were helping cat amateurs allergic to cat hair. In reality, however, the allergens are not in their hair, but in their saliva.
For me, they are almost like humans. It's a very intelligent cat. He's very athletic. He's quite the athlete. He's very muscular. He moves a lot, but not very destructive. A Sphinx is afraid of nothing, not even of the large, ferocious dogs. Very quickly, they become dominant in the home, but they are cats that are quite dependent upon their master. Alone in nature, they would not know how to survive.
Come on, babies. Come on.
Babies, Malika.
Malika.
Sherazad.
Sherazad. Come on. Come on. Come in. Come on.
The hairless Sphinx cat, disturbing to some and endearing to others, cannot live without man. Contrary to other breeds of cats, the Sphinx sweats through its skin, which necessitates regular cleaning. Since their skin is not protected, they cannot be exposed to sun rays because they are prone to sunburn.
The Sphinx must be sociable. Nice. That's part of the standard. A Sphinx can't show any languidness or aggressiveness, or it'll risk disqualification.
In Charleroi, Belgium, an important cat show is held. The cats compete according to their breed, colour, sex and class. Presented to the judge, the animal is examined according to its morphology, the quality of its hair, if it has any, its attitude and its physical condition. The judge's role is crucial. They orient the evolution of the breed and reward those that correspond the most to the standard.
All right, children. I'm starting earlier because I have 176 to judge today. Since I don't want to work late, we'll start early. I'm starting with the Sphinx because it's my favorite breed. Round stomach. Since there's no hair, we can't see the outlines well.
The Bengal is a breed that was created by hybridization.
A well-pronounced pinch, skin like that of a peach.
Good chin. Lovely top of head here.
A rat's tail. Sharp fingers. And here, absolutely adorable. A real teddy bear.
Totally bold. Très belle forme des yeux.
It's the same thing. It's the same standard. Magnificent color, magnificent. A mutation. I love them both. Second, first. The color is there, the pinch is there. Thank you.
Newton, come on. Doggy, come here. Come on, doggy. Come.
The dog is no doubt the species that shows the greatest diversity in appearance and size among mammals. Weight can vary between 300 grams for the smallest Chihuahua to 90 kilos for the heaviest bull mastiff. For the photographer Anne-Arnie Cousseau, every master seems to have found a dog in his likeness. More than 300 dog breeds have been created. Their variety is made all the more astonishing by the fact that they are the products of a single species, the wolf.
He's also mischievous because he eats the remote control, glasses.
I opened my refrigerator and she was inside. No!
This exceptional diversity is due to a characteristic shared by the wolf and the dog, a great diversity in its size, appearance and behavior.
The remote control vendor in Neuilly said to me, "But what goes on at your place?" Same thing with the optician. 6 to 7 pairs of glasses.
Each breed only possesses a small amount of the genetic heritage that controls its characteristics. The major domestications revolutionized human society. We were easily able to fabricate hundreds of breeds, and yet there are many species free of all influence. Are all animals capable of being domesticated? On a worldwide scale, only about 30 mammals, 15 or so birds, 2 insects, a few reptiles, amphibians and fishes can be considered undeniably domesticated. Numerous attempts have proved unsuccessful. Taming has been the only outcome of the efforts made in the past with hyenas, cheetahs or gazelles. In reality, these efforts were perhaps unsuccessful due to the biological characteristics or behavior of some species. If all mammals were equally capable of being domesticated, how do we explain that an animal such as the zebra, who seems so close to the horse, was not domesticated? Perhaps he could have been, but the horse already occupies the throne as man's greatest conquest. Also, the zebra does not adapt as easily to temperate climates, and his social behavior is less malleable than that of the horse. Lots of tenacity and perseverance would have been required to achieve this domestication. As a general rule, more than 30 generations are needed for the great mammals to obtain an initial domestication. Man has not always shown interest in taking the time to do it. There are animals, however, whose domestication would result in a genuine benefit for man. But all attempts are defied. The most memorable example is the elephant, an animal that some consider domesticated, but they're wrong. A domestic animal is very difficult to define. There are as many definitions as there are types of relationships between a society and an animal species. Should we consider that a minimum of social contact with a man or a certain degree of taming needs to occur? The Asian elephant maintains a very strong connection with its handler. For many, this marvelously embodies the social connection between man and animal. However, it cannot be considered a domesticated animal. Man has experienced much trouble in ensuring its reproduction in captivity. Herds are renewed by capturing wild animals. Taming characterizes social connections between man and an animal species. Domestication, on the other hand, implies control of reproduction by man. and the implementation of a selection aimed at the improvement of animals. But domestication does not necessarily imply an affectionate relationship between man and animal. One of the largest breeding farms for crocodiles in the world is located a 2-hour drive from Bangkok. Split up according to their age in about 40 ponds, over 15,000 crocodiles call this place home. Contrary to the elephant, these giant reptiles reproduce perfectly in captivity. Their reproduction is controlled by breeders. From time to time, they renew the stock of breeding animals with a few individuals that come from other breeding farms. Nothing is left to chance. Dr. Panya, the owner of the farm, collects all of the eggs and stores them in incubators. They're stored at a constant temperature for their protection. Each female lays between 30 and 50 eggs. More than 3,000 babies are born every year here, after about 60 days of incubation. Before being penned into nurseries, the babies are marked and registered according to their date of birth and their sex. The veterinarians will then be able to follow their growth and study the abnormalities that could occur. They experience rapid growth. The first year, these babies will grow to 1 meter. For about 20 years, we have easily controlled the breeding of saurians. However, we have not been able to manipulate the species in order to transform it and render it more docile. All attempts to tame it have failed. Among generations of crocodiles born in captivity, no behavioral change or genetic transformation has occurred. However, for these living fossils that have practically not evolved since their first appearance, the domestication process causes minute changes to the animals, as for all reptiles. These reptiles that have no social structure adapt to captivity and are more and more tolerant of the densely populated area without too many attacks between males. In this case, we can surely speak of animal domestication even if the emotional relationship with man is not evident. Consequently, breeding practices have changed considerably for farm animals, accompanied by changes in man's relationship with the animals. At the dawn of the 21st century, a frantic race for productivity began. Certain animals are now relegated to the rank of a mass-produced industrial object. In protein-producing factories, More than 7 billion chicks are force-fed at an accelerated pace each year. In other high-tech factories, millions of standardized calves, pigs or rabbits are raised, crowded into narrow stalls. We are now starting to assess the possible consequences of this pursuit of frantic production. These animals, whose genetic heritage is impoverished, are more susceptible to viruses. Today, Creutzfeldt Jakob and the avian flu have crossed the boundaries of industrial farms. For ornamental reasons and sometimes to defy nature by accomplishing feats, man produces animals that could not necessarily survive alone in nature. Dogs and hairless cats. Obese pigs. Miniature horses and dogs. All these creations now seem possible. Since the dawn of time, man has tried to repress the wild impulses of quite a few animals. And yet, domestication is not an irreversible phenomenon. It took millions of years, and no one could guess the incredible capacity of certain domesticated animals to rediscover so quickly their dulled wild instincts. If a Chihuahua, pug or Sphinx cat have no chance to survive alone in nature, in Australia, like elsewhere in the world, horses, dromedaries or domestic cats have gone down the opposite path. They revert to feral state and become wild once again. In a few generations, this cat has transformed into an effective hunter, only keeping a disconcerting physical resemblance to the companion cat as a trace of its domesticated past. On the Australian continent, as in other territories, the border that separated wild cats from domestic ones has faded. The history of domestication offers a clarification of the complexity of the relationships that we have forged with the animal kingdom for thousands of years. Under our influence, each day, the path is perhaps being paved for a new, tamed species to become domesticated. Everything seems possible now. But will these new companion animals that follow the trends live permanently in our homes? Will they replace the animals that we have inherited from prehistory? New interdependent relationships of mutual responsibility have been established between domesticated animals and ourselves. They have become indispensable. However, we remain torn between the material and emotional needs that they fulfill, and our fascination with the wild kingdom continues to inspire us. The domesticated animals of tomorrow may satisfy these feelings.
Well, on the way now, today's Premiership action. And then don't miss Drew Barrymore in the Screen 2 movie, Our House, tonight at 9:30.